G'day guys, Phil McGilvray here from Grandma's Jars. Thanks for joining us today. We're continuing on with our 10-part tutorial series on our top 10 tips for paying off debt. And today we're looking at tutorial 7, and we're looking at more specifically the strategy of going interest only on your home loan for a period of time. Now, I know people don't like going interest only on the home loan because it means they're not paying their home down. And obviously we all want to pay our home off. That's a great dream, is to have our home and to have it all paid off. But what I'm suggesting is if you've got high interest debt, so credit cards, personal loan, interest-free loans that are now, past that interest-free period, you're paying anywhere from 10 to 27% in interest on those. Whereas on your home loan, you're only paying 4.5% interest. So it does actually work, and it's a very powerful strategy for a period of time to go interest only on your home loan so that you can take those funds, those extra funds you were paying off your home loan, and direct them towards accelerating the repayment of your high interest debt. Now, to explain how this works, I'm going to use the example that I had yesterday, which was a real life example from a client I'd worked with just the night before, talking about how we were going to eliminate their debt and the sort of the process that we went through. So I'm going to use the same example, so hopefully it makes sense. So we'll get stuck straight into it now. Okay, so if you remember, I got my client to list all his debts. Next to his debts, we'd then listed the balances of those debts, or what was owing. And then next to that, we'd written what were the current repayments he was making against each of those debts. And then once we had the current repayments, you can see down there, overall, he was making $2,810 a month payments against all of his debts. And that was more than he needed to. The next column here, we have what was the minimum. So this is what's required by his debtors for him to be paying on a month-by-month basis. And with minimum repayments, often it's just the interest that needs to be paid, so there's not a lot of principal being paid off. And in some cases, like the personal loans, the car loans, and the home loan, there was some principal coming off. But you can see overall, $2,810 is what he was paying. And so on, like the MasterCard here is paying $150 when he only needs to be making $40. On the Visa card, he was making $180 when he only needed to be making $50, and so on. So he was making accelerated payments, and I call this the scattergun approach of trying to pay off your debt. Is you're trying to pay a little bit off them all at once, but nothing really comes down overly quickly. And typically this sort of strategy doesn't work really well. In fact, it hardly ever works. So what we did was, okay, we're going to pay the absolute minimum on all of your loans. And you can see by paying the minimum, it brought his monthly repayments down from $2,810 to $2,327. So it freed up $483 that he didn't have available previously that we can then be more purposeful with. And that's the whole thing about a debt repayment strategy, is it's taking what funds we've got and being more purposeful with them. And so what we did in this instance, we freed up the $483, which allowed us to then say, right, month number 1, we're going to target this speeding fine that we've got here, $294. We're going to throw the $483 at that, plus the minimum that is required, the $60, which allowed us to put $543 towards a $294 debt. So obviously, halfway through that month, we paid that first debt off, and we'd also then paid an extra couple of $100 off the MasterCard. And that process of being able to eliminate one debt quickly and then the next quickly builds confidence and self-belief and gives us the momentum we need to succeed at paying off debt. But what I want to propose today is that we take it one step further. Instead of just paying the minimum down here, and you can see his minimum for his home loan was $1,443. So there was a component of that was still principal, that was paying down his home loan, and a larger component that was interest. Now in this instance, what I'm suggesting is that we reduce this, we stop paying down the principal for the home loan, and we just go interest only for a period, which means that the minimum repayment now goes to $911. Now I know it hurts not to be paying down the home loan, but as I said before, it's silly paying down a debt at 4.5% when over here we've got debts at 17, 18, 27%. So what I'm suggesting is we pay $911 by going interest only in his home loan, and that reduces his overall debt repayments as a minimum to $1,804. So initially we were paying $2,810. We then reduced it to $2,327. And then by going interest only in his home loan, we've reduced the minimum required to $1,804. So there's $1,006 difference here. Now, what that will do is we take that $1,006 and we throw that at our first debt, and you can see again in month one we will have the speeding fine knocked off, but we will also have half of the MasterCard paid off. So come month two, we'll be able to completely knock off the MasterCard and have half of or good chunk of, almost half of the Visa card also paid off. Now, this is accelerating, that extra $500 is accelerating that process significantly. Now, when I spoke to this client and did this original plan for him, he was so excited that we were going to be able to pay off all his debt inside 18 months because he'd been struggling with it for 2 or 3 years. He'd been trying to pay it off with this scattergun approach, but just kept sliding backwards, and he just wasn't seeing the progress, and it was really frustrating. But when I showed him this, we'd drawn up a very specific month-by-month plan. He looked at it and said, wow, this is doable. We can pay this off in 18 months. But when I took it that step further and said, well, actually, if we go interest on your home loan, which he was a bit reticent to do at first, which I perfectly understand, but when I said to him, look, if we can free up that extra $500, we will have these first 5 loans here, so these lifestyle loans, we will have these paid off inside 13 months instead of 18 months. So we were 5 months ahead of that original schedule. And the good thing about that is we've got those paid off, all that high interest debt, the high interest we would have paid. We've now got all the funds, $1,006, plus these minimum repayments here. So we're looking at really the best part of $2,000. Once these 5 debts are gone, we have about $2,000 that we can then start throwing at his home loan. And that was going to make his home loan come down even faster than the original example. So even though in the short term it doesn't seem to make sense that we're reducing the home loan payments, so that we're not really making any progress on that at all. But if it means we can accelerate getting rid of this high interest debt, it will actually make your home loan paying that process off even faster. So mathematically, I can guarantee it works. As I said to you before, even though paying off home loans and interest-free loans and high interest debts, isn't mathematical, if we can get rid of these smaller debts first, which is a big thing, then paying off your home loan becomes really easy. So I'd really encourage you. It makes sense. It works. However, if you haven't got a budget in place, if you haven't dealt with the behaviours that cause you to be in debt in the first place, don't do this, because the last thing you want to do is go interest only on your home loan and then find that you're spending an extra $500 and squandering it. What we really need to do is make sure that when we go interest only, all of that money is purposefully put towards the high interest debt, and as soon as the high interest debt's gone, we start channeling it towards the home loan. It works. Obviously, my clients, we use it with them all the time, but they have the benefit of having the accountability that we offer them, so they're never at risk of just spending it. But hopefully it works for you. It is a powerful strategy, but it's not for everyone. So get your budget in order, deal with the habits and behaviours that cause you to have the debt in the first place, and this will work wonderfully for you. As always, if you've got any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you on our forum, or please contact us through the contacts page.